Welcome to Podcasts Like It's the 2000s, the podcast where we talk about the films of the aughts, here from our perch in 2025. I'm one of your hosts, Phil Isco.
I'm your other host, Emily St. James. A fun fact about me is if you've watched this on the Patreon, you know this, but my office is staffed entirely with young hunks, and I call them Emily's Reasons Why Not. That was a joke about a one-episode TV show nobody remembers.
Perfect. I have no notes. With us today to conclude our miniseries on Mike Nichols' films and TV of the 2000s is Vanity Fair's television critic, Sonia Saraiya. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Although I'm not Vanity Fair's television critic anymore,
no.
but I can pretend.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I left
totally
Vanity
fucked up your introduction, Sonia.
Oh my God, that's okay. It makes me sound more important than I am, which I love.
Okay.
But no, Vanity Fair's got new leadership now. They don't have critics anymore, and also I left them a little while ago to focus on being a mother of children who don't like me. So
Google is terrible, and
that's true.
I Googled you, and that's what came up, and I was like, this must be right. And then before we got on mic, I wanted to make sure I pronounced your name correctly and fucked up your job. So I am so sorry.
You have so much great writing from over the years that people can read at all sorts of platforms, AV Club and Salon and Variety and Vanity Fair, and you are an all-around inspiration and delight. And I'm
100%.
sure your children deep down grudgingly like you, as mine likes me.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I truly, Sonia, when I reached out, I was like, I've read so much of your work. I'm a huge fan of your perspective on television, and I guess to some extent you also probably some film mixed in there as well, I'm sure.
Totally. I have perspectives on a lot of things.
And we're going to learn all about them. We're so thankful that you're going to come on and talk about a perplexing film. A film that is really very odd in many ways, and we'll talk about those. But I do think that for this to be Mike Nichols' final film is also adds to the oddness of it. Yes, please go ahead.
This is an Aaron Sorkin script. It's one of his worst scripts. It's like a script that does all the Aaron Sorkin things people hate. Yeah. And yet, if I were to make my list of like top 10 problems with this movie, it would be very low. Like
it is interesting. So I've been reading the Mark Harris book, the Mike Nichols biography, as I sort of go through these individual films. And I read the Charlie Wilson's War section last night, and it really is just sort of a bit of an anomaly, even within Mike Nichols' filmography, in the sense that it really was just sort of a gun for hire job. He didn't develop this movie. It kind of fell in his lap. Sorkin brought it to him, actually, before even Hanks had thought of Nichols for the film, which is odd that Sorkin would go around his producers and his lead star, and essentially attach Mike Nichols to this movie. But yeah, I do kind of wonder, and the book doesn't really, the Harris book doesn't really illuminate what drew Nichols to this movie, I guess, outside of the fact that it was a movie that was going to get made, and he was like, I guess I'll do it.
I can imagine. It sounds like the original versions of this script were a bit darker and more satirical and a bit more digging into the fact that, like, for the good that this did in the moment, however you want to define that, whatever the effect of this in the moment was, the ultimate repercussions were far greater, in a way that, at least in the perspective of Mr. Charlie Wilson, of Charlie Wilson's War fame.
Indeed.
Yeah, but it's I can see reading that original script and being like, yes, and it sounds like it got watered down. It's well,
certainly the ending, which we'll talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is just so did we all see this in theaters when this came out?
No.
Not in theaters.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Were you, I guess what I was going to say is Mike Nichols, Aaron Sorkin, Tom Hanks, Julia Roberts, everyone was on paper excited for this movie. Even if the sort of historical thing that it was unpacking was something that I would argue most people didn't know a ton about. They were still sort of like, well, look at the pedigree of this. I'm sure this is going to be good. And I left the theater when I saw it, like genuinely perplexed, in the sense that I didn't feel as though I felt like I learned something and also didn't at the same time, if that makes sense. Like it's giving you a lot of information, but it's delineating it in a way that I found actually quite confusing. And yeah. Yes. Please.
I think that this movie, of Mike Nichols movies from the 2000s, not counting his television, I think this is the best directed. Like this has like the camera does a lot of, like, the camera moves with purpose. Like the scenes are blocked well. Like all of it is like the basic rudimentary elements of directing are all handled really well. I think this movie cannot get around the fact that ultimately the story is about a guy convincing the US government to give a certain program more money. Like that's literally what this movie's about.
Black ops, a secret from the taxpayers, a secret from most of government. Like going from $5 million to $1 billion, apparently even more than that, and it's weapons. It is not a good thing. Like I'm just like, zoom out. That's not a good. But I do feel like this is classic Sorkin. He often misses the forest for the trees. He's like, he loves the details. He loves the sort of like zingy drama, da da da. And then you zoom out a little bit. You're like, this is not good. This is a terrible scene. Yeah.
Well, it's yes, sir, please.
It's like Moneyball is the movie that's kind of closest to this in the Sorkin oeuvre, where it's like another movie about something that's ultimately just like economics and like figuring out a way to like play the game differently. But that is legitimately a movie about somebody who like changed the way this thing happened. Also, it's baseball. The stakes are very low. Like this is like just, we're gonna like use the CIA to like fund this Black Ops. It's
Well, it's mixed into that, and I agree with what both of you are saying, in the sense that, I mean, obviously Aaron Sorkin loves behind the scenes shit. Like that's his favorite thing, right? Which is the sort of odd camaraderie that exists behind the scenes in the making of a thing, whatever that thing is. And I really believe that, despite the fact that this is probably a movie that never should have been made, about a time of history that probably shouldn't have been illuminated, by changing the ending of this movie. Like there's a portion of the book that I do want to read, because there's a quote from Sorkin talking about why he was so adamant to keep the ending that he had, which was to explicitly say that this led to 9/11. By removing that, for Aaron Sorkin anyway, I can see that being, then why did we do this? Like, what was the point of even writing and making this, for good or bad?
There's a piece of me that is like, it's a little like Aaron Sorkin to be like, well, the ultimate bad thing was what happened to America. Like let's not really think about the other but like, also, you know, in 2007, and then 9/11 is going to have like, it's going to hit hard. It's like this is a much one of my favorite movies, but Spielberg's Munich ends with that shot that has the World Trade Center in it as like a very implicit sense of this conflict goes to, you know, all the way, came all the way back home. And like this movie is crying out for that and just lacks it. You know?
Despite the fact that it is so weird to me that this book and this project was a Tom Hanks passion project, because I don't fully understand what drew him to it if he can't make that connection, right? Like if Tom Hanks is, and I don't think that Tom Hanks lacks courage as an artist. I think he's done all sorts of really interesting projects, and I really love the weird swings that he's made over the course of his career. But I do feel like if you read this book and you're too scared to draw that corollary to 9/11, why are you developing this project? it's like the end of the book being like the end game. You fucked up the end game.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say I have deep feelings about this because
Sure.
I think that in the at this point in time in my life, I have been deeply I think the word is black pilled about the CIA, which is to say that there is nothing I wouldn't put past the CIA.
Sure.
And I think reading the book, I mean, I just skimmed Wikipedia. I'm not doing a ton of fact checking here, but it was really interesting to read the official story on this comes from just this one book by George Cryle III, um, who was a CBS reporter for a long time and did a lot of reporting on intelligence. Was in the military himself. You know, a lot of his contacts were CIA people as well. Like he did reporting on the CIA. Charlie Wilson was in the Navy for a while. Comes out of this district being very like Democratic. He's a Democrat, sorry, I should say, very like sort of progressive, like liberal. He's pro-choice, sort of surprisingly for his era and whatever, but is gung-ho about Israel, like right from the start for no clear reason. And you sort of kind of have to ask yourself, like, is this like a I almost feel like this is a story that is really convenient that kind of elides some other motive to what may have been occurring. I mean, and again, I feel so, and I should say, when I first saw this movie, I liked it. I didn't. I was sort of like, oh, Sorkin's doing a Sorkin thing. He's finally back to doing a Sorkin thing. I should come out and confess that I have been a Sorkin person for a long time, which is to say, I've had a love hate relationship. Like I think
Same.
at this part when this movie came out, I hated him. I was very mad at him. And so I was like, oh, he's doing his thing. I have no concept of like what's happening in the Middle East. I don't know what the Iran-Contra affair is. I still don't really know what the Iran-Contra affair is. I have like, I've like learned more about it. There's a lot going on there. But like when I look at it now, when I watch this now, I was like, oh my God, like there are so many sleazy dirtbag things happening in this movie that the script, and I guess I would say I'm a little less clear on like what Mike Nichols was doing here, but certainly the script, the tone is very like, don't worry about this. This is fine. It's fine that it's fine that this guy was lured to multiple places by the promise of girls. It's fine that this guy was lured to various places by a woman who is like a mysteriously very wealthy woman in Texas. And you're like, oh, Texas, where do people get their money in Texas from? Could it be oil? Could oil have something to do with why we're interfering in the well, but no one's mentioned the word no one's mentioned that. I wonder if that has something to do with why she's really afraid of communism in the Middle East. And maybe that's why she's friends with the guy who became a dictator in Pakistan. No one's talking about
no
that.
No one's questioning any of these details. It is a movie that yada yadas a ton of stuff because if I'm being completely frank, and I'm not making excuses for any of the things you just tagged Aaron Sorkin with, but it's an unwieldy story. It's an unwieldy book. I haven't read it, but just based on what the research I did in terms of how they had to streamline stuff, it really does feel like he's just trying to parse out any sort of a story that an audience can follow along with. And thus, we kind of stay at a very high altitude on a lot of very tricky subjects.
It's a movie that really needed Steven Soderbergh in Traffic Mode to be like, to sort of, it's the movie that it kind of is trying to do all of this, which is not a good movie, but is Syriana, which is like, we're going to look at the various levels of American policy and oil and all of these things. And this movie, like, is largely uninterested. And I think this is Mike Nichols instinct as a director and as a filmmaker is to just zero in on character dynamics, which in many cases is the right call. And in this case is like, well, yeah, the interpersonal dynamics are fascinating. And this guy in theory is an interesting human being. Like he's got a lot of like sort of contradictory elements driving him. But yeah, you kind of can't ignore the politics. And it sounds like even Aaron Sorkin, who would have ignored the politics in a different way, but like at least was like cognizant they existed, was like, come on, my dude, let's.
I also, to that point, and sort of to allude back to what I was saying about Hanks, like Charlie Wilson was a huge cokehead, a guy who was, you know, a womanizer. There's all sorts of things about this guy that don't scream Tom Hanks. That it all feels like he's trying to do a thing that he can't really do.
He's an alcoholic. I mean, I think this is just in the Wikipedia, but
yes.
Wilson became a functioning alcoholic and suffered from severe bouts of depression and insomnia. His drinking intensified during his involvement in Afghanistan. And then there was a scandal where his car did a hit and run. The night before his first. This is not right. None of this makes it into the film. By the way, a sympathetic portrayal of a politically incorrect swashbuckler who likes the company of beautiful women and struggles with addiction. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Do you think Aaron Sorkin might have been
I don't know
about someone?
No. How dare you? It is
got a slight southern accent.
Yeah.
I like this is definitely Tom Hanks wants to play reprobates. He wants to play bad guys.
Yeah.
And I think he can be pretty good at it. For as much as I don't remember the film Road to Perdition, I do think he's pretty good in it. He's got some other
still doesn't remember it. Yeah.
He's got some other movies he's pretty good in, but where he does this. This movie though needs you to believe that like all these hot women would sleep with him. And for me, weirdly, that's a bridge too far. Well, I think he's like a good-looking man. But he just does not scream, I'm gonna have everyone who sees me wants to have sex with me, you know?
The Guardian has an amazing quote that I'll read that said, cast as a hellraiser for some reason is Forrest Gump. Tom Hanks looks vaguely terrified as nubile strumpets inexplicably quee up to writhe all over him. It's quite unsettling to watch, like seeing a baby elephant cornered by a pride of hungry lions. It is very strange. Like so Emily Blunt is in this movie.
Emily Blunt's in this movie.
Emily Blunt is in this movie as the daughter of some sort of politician, it seems, who shows up very uptight with her hair pulled back and looking like Lilith from Frasier. And you're just like, oh, well, she's going to have nothing to do with him. And then like the next scene, she's basically naked and throwing herself at him. Yeah. She seems much, much younger than him. Fine. But when she's sort of lying across him and he's putting his finger in her belly button, and I was just like, I don't like this. I don't like any part of this. Tom Hanks doesn't do this. I don't know how else to explain it. So it bounces right off of you, and they know that. He only kisses Julia Roberts in this movie. We don't see them have sex. Their conversation is entirely post-coital. Everything is alluded to. And you're just like, this feels like a bearing wall of this man that we're sidestepping because we've cast Tom
Hanks. It does feel like, how can we have a scene that alludes to a sexy thing you could do with a sexy lady, not get in a fight with the MPAA? I know, we'll have him stick his finger in her belly button.
I don't like it.
Even
yes, please.
Even
Sonia.
the office scenes, I think.
Yeah, God.
I think that might be one of the ways that the movie's successful, though, is that they really do kind of convince you that Charlie Wilson is not doing like mass level sexual harassment with his, because they're like, look, he's hired women. He thinks that they're competent professionals, and they all seem to have regulation mandated unbuttoned down to the third button.
Navel. Yeah.
They have to have a certain bra size. Their hair has to be in this certain bed head look. They're all wearing the little pencil skirts. Even Amy Adams, who is a saint, god damn it. Even Amy Adams is wearing the little pencil skirt and doing the I have the cutest ponytail in the world. And the camera just zooms in our butt that one time.
I know.
And I think it's almost like, this is so fun. It's also delightful. It's Forrest Gump doing these things. I guess that
it's very strange.
It's a little odd.
I also just think like there's something they're all competent, just to be clear, right? Like for what it's worth, they're all quote unquote very good at their jobs, which in its own way feels like saying don't judge a book by its cover, but also is patronizing and sexist at the same time.
It's also Amy Adams, her character's name is Bonnie. Her job, she's kind of a proxy for all of these women. She's the one who gets like a major like sort of character arc. And like her job is to be his assistant. And she's a very good assistant. And like she's clearly very smart. She can like pull stuff out of her brain. But also her job is to like listen to him when he decides to talk at length. And it just is this is the part of the movie where I'm like, well, that's Aaron Sorkin through and through.
100%. Her job is to stare at him adoringly. It like with the like, and she's so good at it. Like props to Amy Adams for giving this thankless role, like her 100%. I think like even right down to her being jealous when Charlie Wilson goes up to sleep with Joanne Herring, and she's like drinking the martini on the stairs because she's mad about it. She's a loyal dog. She's a golden retriever. And it really pisses me off. Like, again, having watched so much The West Wing, like I'm familiar with Sorkin's assistant, like the sort of assistant dynamic, but also maybe because the TV show's a TV show, it had a little bit more room to work with like some of the complexities there. But in this, it's just like Amy Adams, who's a liberal, as Julia Roberts puts it. She's the only one who is maybe like not actively being sexually harassed, and yet willingly puts herself in the role of I am a flunky for this man, and I am so proud of my role. I'm just adoring. I adore this man.
There's also the moment when she's like, you shouldn't have even been in the room with all that cocaine, where she like kind of like slaps his hand, and I'm just like, Bonnie,
she's
honestly, mommy. Like it's very obviously, and we've talked about this, Emily, Aaron Sorkin is not great at writing women. It's not his strength.
Understatement of the century.
Of forever. He is not good at it. And this movie, I would say, I mean, Joanne is not written well either. I mean, Joanne is its own sort of potpourri of odd cliches and whatever. But like there's this moment that really kind of irked me. Late in the film, they're all at a bar. Joanne's there with all the assistants, and she walks by them and says, sluts. And I was like, seriously? Like, where are you in this spectrum of femininity or feminism exactly, that you have the audacity on your high horse to be saying that these women are lesser than you? I just, every part of it, I was just like, what is this?
I genuinely think that is Aaron Sorkin, not Aaron Sorkin. I don't think Aaron Sorkin knows this, but like it didn't bother me because I read it through the lens of she's an evangelical Christian. Even if she's like a huge hypocrite, she's like, oh, these women are not. So I'm going to put them in a different bucket. I think Aaron Sorkin just thought that was how women talk to each other.
I think that's exactly what he thought. He's like, women call each other sluts all the time, right? Isn't that what they do?
And meanwhile, I mean, if you kind of connect the dots on it, I should say, I think Julia Roberts is very good in this movie. I think for late career Julia, this is great. Honestly, she gets to wear the wigs. she gets to be a gigantic bitch. Like this is like what she loves. She gets to do this ridiculous accent.
She's there for the gays,
She's
that's
there,
what she is.
She really is. And I think that Aaron Sorkin seems to have like three different tropes of woman, right? He has very sexualized bombshell who does whatever she wants. He has flunky. He's got Amy Adams. He's got Julia Roberts. And I think then there's some people in the middle that he doesn't quite know what to do with. But it is so strange that she calls Charlie Wilson to her house, being like, "There will be women and booze. Come and meet." Who is it? Meet the dictator of Pakistan? Is that what happens
correct.
right at the beginning?
Yes.
And literally, this is the guy who did in a coup overthrew the somewhat communist government, and instituted a dictatorship that was really intense on industrialization and Islamism, right? But she was cool with it because it was not communist. And then like, I mean, there's so many. I don't know. How does she call other people sluts if literally she slept with the guy in order to get him to bomb the Soviets in Afghanistan? But I don't know. Anyway,
but fine. There's also like their relationship in real life. Like they were engaged in real life. Charlie Wilson and Joanne. Like there's a thing there that this movie just doesn't excavate at all, which is surprising to me when you have Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts, and maybe there's just stuff on the cutting room floor. This film does seem, I don't want to say short, but at 100 minutes, you get the impression that there's probably a longer cut of this movie, and the studio's like, just keep this under 100 minutes, please, for everyone's sake.
I will say it's breezy. Like it does keep moving, and I don't feel like I'm missing anything except for literally all the context. Like I follow the plot more or less.
Sure.
So.
I want to give just a little bit of context for our listeners that might not have seen Charlie Wilson's War.
God, I can't believe I set you up for that. God,
I'm sorry. In the 1980s U.S. representative, Charlie Wilson, played by Tom Hanks, is Texas socialite Joanne Herring, played by Julia Roberts, and CIA agent Gust Avrakotos. Forgive me, I butchered that.
It sounds like avocados.
Oh, avocados. Okay. Played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, form an unlikely alliance to boost funding for Afghan freedom fighters in their war against the Soviets. The trio's successful efforts to finance these covert operations contributes to the fall of the Soviet Union at the end of the Cold War. Charlie Wilson's War opened on December 21st, 2007 against National Treasure, Book of Secrets, I Am Legend, Alvin and the Chipmunks, and Sweeney Todd. They would go on to make $119 million on a $75 million budget. It's got 67 on Metacritic from critics and a 6.8 score from audiences, and it also has a 3.2 average on Letterboxd, which is higher than I would have expected, quite honestly.
It's fun to watch. Superficially, It's fun to watch.
Sure, just don't think about it too hard, and I guess it's fun.
And Philip Seymour Hoffman is in it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Philip Seymour Hoffman.
But genuinely, there's a lot of people in this movie giving it their all and having a pretty good time.
Sure.
It is weird because I love Philip Seymour Hoffman in this movie, and he kind of has no idea what to do with Aaron Sorkin dialogue.
He doesn't.
It's that I recently rewatched Alien Resurrection.
Sure.
The fourth Alien film, the one written by Joss Whedon.
I like that movie.
And it's weird because it comes from a time before Joss Whedon dialogue was the standard for genre storytelling, which it is now. And it's like really early in the run of Buffy. So people don't know how to deliver his dialogue. So nobody knows how to deliver these quips, and they just fall flat. And like some of that's because they had a director who didn't speak English, so like it was hard to like convey that. But like it's really just like you hear Sigourney Weaver doing these quips very very straight faced and sort of deadly, and this movie feels like that for Sorkin, which is weird because it feels like it would be very hard to deliver Sorkin dialogue anyway, other than how it's written on the page. But Philip Seymour Hoffman does the thing where he says, "And I'm never ever sick at sea," which Aaron Sorkin is obsessed with having people say, and you're just kind of like, why? What's it? Points out the art. He points out the artificiality of it in a way that makes his performance better and Sorkin's script worse. It's so weird.
I absolutely agree with you. I would argue that no one kind of delivers this dialogue particularly well in this movie, and I do wonder, because as I was watching it, I was thinking about. So Sonia, we covered Angels in America previously, and obviously Mike Nichols is incredibly adept at the transference of theatrical dialogue to film and television. And obviously Angels in America has a lot of very dense, wordy, and it all works beautifully. And in this, it all falls quite flat, which does make me wonder, like, and then we should talk about the fact that Mike Nichols was quite ill while making this film. And, he struggled, I think, with certainly the Morocco stuff. He had a lot of respiratory issues in Morocco. And it was very touch and go. And if it wasn't for Hanks fighting for him to stay on the film, he might have been kicked off the movie, quite frankly, in terms of just inability to execute the Morocco stuff. All that being said, once it got back stateside, I think he was much more on solid ground, and he did a good job. This is all just to say that I do wonder whether or not Nichols was a little checked out, not as sort of in the words as he should have been. And it just, the performances, it doesn't have that rat-a-tat-ness that you usually have from Sorkin. It's very strange.
It's interesting because the Closer is kind of the flip side of this, where he's too into the text, and it makes the movie worse because Mike Nichols kind of doesn't understand the text, I'd argue. And here he's like a little detached in a way that like undercuts. I don't think that this movie could have ever been like great, but I think there's like a passable TNT Sunday afternoon movie that could have been made from this script, and it doesn't quite get there. So
well, and I brought up the fact that, because you were saying this movie made money, and it did, and I think part of the reason is that each of the actors, the main three, let's say, Hoffman and Hanks and Roberts, are like, they're kind of each doing their own thing in a very like recognizable and approachable way. Like they're all engaging, but they are all kind of on different planets. Like I think it doesn't really feel like they're in the same movie. I can't think of other instances of Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts being in a movie together, but it feels like that should be a really big deal, right?
Larry Crown, my friend, a movie that I walked out of, and I don't walk out of movies.
I feel like I would love Larry Crown.
Yeah, of course you would, Emily. Larry Crown is totally. You should watch Larry Crown. Have you seen it, Emily? You've never seen it?
I'm not familiar with it either.
Okay, so Larry Crown, just for what it's worth, it's a movie that straight up doesn't exist because obviously you guys don't know about it, and you guys know about every movie. But basically, 2011, Tom Hanks wrote this with Nia Vardalos.
Oh, Christ!
Directed it. It is a movie about a middle-aged veteran who gets a job at a big box store and lacks college education, so he goes back to college. It is such a bad movie. It's a shockingly bad movie. Tom Hanks, Julia Roberts, Bryan Cranston, Taraji P. Henson, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Vilmer Valderrama, Pam Grier. Anyway, it's a movie, guys.
Wow.
I think I only know that movie from we made a joke. I think we cut this from Arden, but there was a joke about somebody calling it the sexiest movie of all time.
It's a good joke. Yeah. You guys should absolutely watch it. But this is just to say, if you have Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts, people are going to go and see the movie. I think that's what you're getting at. So.
Right, totally. And given those two big names, like you sort of expect there to be a little bit more chemistry between them. And I do definitely take in, like, they have a history and they're so they have such a, like, especially Julia has such like familiar kind of engaging way of talking to him, and you're like, I kind of just love listening to Julia talk in this accent. But there's so little actual zing there. I was surprised to see that in the weird one moment where Gust tries to sleep with Joanne, there's a little bit more zing with
there's more zing between them
between Philip Seymour Hoffman and Julia Roberts, even though everything else about that feels very like, oh god, like, what's happening here, why is this happening? But you are kind of like, oh, this feels like tennis, like there's like a nice little ping pong happening there. Which is just to say, I mean, first of all, Philip Seymour Hoffman, generational talent. Like watching this, I'm like, oh my god, he's so good with, like, again, this dialogue that's sort of annoying, and like he's representing the CIA, which is like like it's just such a weird, and I wonder if, to go back to some of the things we were talking about, where maybe this was a darker movie at some point, if that was part of the draw for him, where he's like, oh, I'm gonna be this like sort of institutional like G-man kind of, but he has this like funny affect, but kind of be the guy sleazing into politics.
And I think that Nichols is the draw for so many people, obviously. And you know, Philip Seymour Hoffman and Nichols would work again on the stage in one of Nichols' final sort of productions, which is they do Death of a Salesman together. He plays Willy Loman on the stage, which I'm sure was phenomenal. I think that Philip Seymour Hoffman and Mike Nichols, as I don't want to say contentious, but just difficult people. I'm sure that relationship was fruitful, and the sense you get is that it's the only character that feels lived in this movie in a real way. Yeah. Like it's you get the impression that like they found something in Gust that was worthwhile and that was worth excavating and put in the, you know. I want to just talk very quickly about where Hanks is in his career at this moment, because I mean, obviously we'll talk Hanks. We're going to talk Hanks again in a couple of weeks. We're doing Catch Me If You Can. So there's that. But
we're going to talk Amy Adams again in a couple of weeks.
We will. Yes, indeed.
I can make my substance joke.
This movie is sandwiched between two Langdon movies. It's Da Vinci Code and Angels in America are on either side of this.
Angels and Demons.
But
I'm trying to imagine Tom Hanks as Roy Cohn and failing.
Yeah. Lewis? Maybe? No?
He could have been Lewis when he was young. Yeah.
When he could have played Lewis. Yeah. So you do get the sense that Da Vinci Code is and someday we're going to talk about the Da Vinci Code, Emily, and it's going to be amazing.
I can't wait, honestly.
I can't wait either, because that's one of the more flummoxing movies that I would argue him and Ron Howard have been involved in.
Well,
but
yeah, no,
but we're not going to get sidetracked. We're not going to do it now.
I want to get sidetracked.
But Da Vinci happens, and he follows it up with this, and then he goes into Angels and Demons, and then it's Toy Story 3, and then Larry Crown and Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close in 2011. 2011 is a real year for Tom Hanks.
And then he had to get Cloud Atlas. He just had to.
Cloud Atlas.
And he's one of my favorite performances by him.
He's amazing.
It's fucking weird. Like,
and then he does like Captain Phillips after that. Like this is the Tom Hanks that I would say we've sort of grown accustomed to, which is safe ground, something weird, safe ground, something weird.
I think this is the period when he starts to accept he's no longer a movie star and is now an interesting, like the ideal form of Tom Hanks now is like he pops up in a Wes Anderson movie for 5 minutes and is just kind of a charming grandpa. And like he's so good in Asteroid City, especially. But like it is very much, he has accepted, now I am the supporting player and I'm gonna do character, and like he's great at it, but he kind of has to get through, he kind of has to do Cloud Atlas, where he is that he's the reason that movie gets made, but also it's so clearly like he did it so he could play a bunch of different supporting parts and kind of like figure out his thing. So
I would also say too, like, I think that's why, and we'll talk about this someday on our Da Vinci Code, but Da Vinci Code is his attempt at like, I want a franchise and I want to still be a movie star.
It's supposed to be his Mission Impossible. Yeah.
Right. And to a degree it works. Like that movie makes a boatload of money, but it doesn't really turn into the franchise that I think
that movie was always going to make a boatload of money because the book was so huge. And I think that's the mistake some of these guys make when they're like, I'm going to take on this huge book, because the book is never going to necessarily translate into a movie franchise beyond like, obviously the other books were sold well, but they didn't sell Da Vinci Code well. No book has sold Da Vinci Code well, except for the Bible.
Well, speaking of books and speaking of Hanks, and kind of the reason that I brought it up was Primary Colors. Nichols wanted him to play Bill Clinton, let's just call it Bill Clinton. And this is the mid to late 90s, and Hank still wants to be, thought of as quote unquote young. There's a bunch of reasons why he passes on that project. I don't necessarily wish he did that project because it would have meant any number of great movies that we got from him in the 90s might not have happened. So like I don't wish Primary Colors to happen. You know, if we're going to lose Saving Private Ryan, for instance, right? Like that doesn't seem like a fair switch. But I do think that watching this movie, he could have done what he wanted to do with Nichols in a role that suited him maybe a little bit better, quite honestly, because there's more there. And this just feels kind of like warmed over Bill Clinton in a way that I'm just sort of like, dude, you just should have done Primary Colors. If you wanted to work with Nichols and you wanted to do this type of role, and I just think that he was scared of like the political ramifications of doing it in that moment and blah blah blah. But this feels to me like them just being like, hey, we almost did this together. I don't know. It's weird.
And it's not really about, because Primary Colors is about the womanizing. And
Correct.
In this movie, the womanizing is sort of a sideshow to the Islamism, which no one really cares about, I think.
Yep.
Like, no one's really engaging with that. So yeah, I mean, I think part of what's the problem is that none of the actors are really invested in what the movie is sort of trying to illustrate.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think also not to, I mean, I did a whole Primary Colors episode on our Patreon, but I do just think it's worth saying Elaine May isn't a good fit for Primary Colors either. Aaron Sorkin's actually the right person that you wanted adapting Primary Colors, and he ultimately kind of does that in The West Wing, so which is all kind of around the same time. So it's like I understand why that doesn't happen, but like the Elaine May adaptation, John Travolta being in that movie rather than Tom, like there's just things. Not to mention the Lewinsky scandal happening. All these things are what crater Primary Colors, and it is just interesting to think of this film as a weird sort of 2007 version of that movie.
It's trying to do it is I don't know if I'd go as far as that, but it is trying to do like, okay, we have enough distance from 9/11 to kind of talk about some of these issues, but it is weirdly uninterested in, and you can get away in Primary Colors with being weirdly uninterested in politics beyond the interpersonal ramifications of how these characters treat each other. But you can't get away with that in this movie, which is about the rise of specifically Islamic freedom fighters in these countries that first the Soviet Union, then the United States, and in some versions like we're sort of like trying to turn into pawns, and then also the Cold War, which is like the most significant political struggle, geopolitical struggle of like Aaron Sorkin and Mike Nichols' lifetime, and he just kind of is not interested in the Cold War beyond buzzwords, you know. At the very least, I would expect this to like lay out Aaron Sorkin's vision of why he thinks the Cold War happened, and it doesn't bother with that, you know.
I also found myself, Tom Hanks's performance in this movie isn't bad per se. As we all said, I think he's miscast, but his voice, I realized, is what he does with Ben Bradley in The Post later. That gravelly kind of like, he just kind of like this phlegmy kind of performance he has is sort of similar. They have a kind of similar vibe.
I've been thinking about the chemistry question for a second here, and I think it's just like, okay, who has Tom Hanks had great chemistry with? Meg Ryan is like the guy, the lady that everyone's like, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, let's see them together forever. And I think it's because Tom Hanks has big, your best friend's charming dad energy. Absolutely. And Meg Ryan has big, your best friend's hot mom energy. Just like, you know, like, but Julia Roberts has always been, there's been something about her that is a little bit more aggressive. You do not get that vibe from her. So she's like the girl who's too cool for you. And like the Philip Seymour Hoffman making sense with her is because he's always the guy who's going after the girl who's too cool for him. In his movie star persona, at least, he can play literally anything. But like his star persona is, I probably shouldn't be, you know, the big bad. I probably shouldn't be, you know, Lester Bangs. I probably shouldn't be whoever this person is. Shouldn't be doing what they're doing, but they're going to go for it anyway. And like that's why he works opposite her in a way that like Tom Hanks just does not.
Totally, it's so true. I mean, I'm trying to think of other people that Hanks had chemistry with. I'm just like looking at his filmography, and I'm like, he has a nice energy with Sandra Bullock in Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. Um, uh, Obviously a somewhat cursed film in so many ways, but I do think they actually kind of have a nice thing. He actually has pretty good chemistry with Helen Hunt in Castaway.
Yeah.
Enough that it gives you the juice to get you through the island stuff. You're like, I get why he still longs for her type thing.
His Philip Seymour Hoffman's death is a tragedy on many levels.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But in a way, we were robbed of him becoming boy Meryl Streep.
This thing yes.
Where Meryl Streep can kind of do anything, but she's always Meryl Streep. And also, whatever she does, like when we talked about her in Angels America, when she does the rabbi speech at the start, she's making so many interesting choices. And you don't think about the choices until you think about the performance afterward. And Philip Seymour Hoffman did that. And now he'd be in his 60s, I think. And we would just be like getting these, as he aged into like these older man performances. I think he would have gotten like 70 Oscar nominations.
We obviously were robbed of just a illustrious and phenomenal career, and it is a tragedy, but I do think that it is interesting to sort of, because I was looking at his filmography as well, like where he is around this time, and it's like he's nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this movie. It's the sole nomination this film gets. It's actually a pretty tough. It's 07. It's a pretty tough nomination. Javier Bardem walks away with it, and he had the Oscar the second that the movie was released. I think everyone
call it friendo. What if I just said his dialogue in No Country, like just in my voice? Call it friendo.
It's Javier Bardem for No Country for Old Men, Casey Affleck for The Assassination of Jesse James, Philip Seymour Hoffman for Charlie Wilson's War, Hal Holbrook for Into the Wild, an absolutely just heartbreaking performance from Hal Holbrook, and Tom Wilkinson for Michael Clayton. Like those are, that's like, I mean, it's a pretty solid 5.
And I feel like there were a bunch of people that got left out. I'm going to look this up.
Sure.
You keep talking about this. Yeah.
But I'm just like, that's a pretty solid 5. I mean, Philip Seymour Hoffman wasn't going to win. And it's understandable why he was singled out from this movie. It was a performance that just, that popped. But like around this time, we talked about him in Mission Impossible 3, which was sort of his post-Oscar paycheck movie, which he's very good in. The Savages, Before the Devil Knows You Dead, and Charlie Wilson's War, that's his 07. Those are 3 very good movies and 3 very good performances.
If you've ever watched obviously I think we all watched the Oscars that year, but if you go back and look at him lose to Javier Bardem, when they say Philip Seymour Hoffman, like it may have been the Globes, it's some award that they cut to him in the audience, and he has the most, yep, that's me, you're probably wondering what I'm doing here face, because it's like even he seems a little surprised to be nominated for Charlie Wilson's War. The person who really got left out and Hal Holbrook pushed him out was John Travolta for Hairspray, who got nominated a bunch of places.
Oh my god.
I honestly prefer him to Hal Holbrook in Into the Wild, movie I really don't like, but like I think Hal Holbrook's good in that movie. He's my favorite part of it, but it's also such
Travolta more in Hairspray than...
I enjoy Travolta in Hairspray, but like Holbrook
we'll cover Hairspray someday, and it'll be great, and I can't wait.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be fun.
It'll be our best episode. He then in 08 he does Schenectady, New York, and Doubt. And it's just, he didn't give us a bad performance, really. He was sometimes not in great movies, but he was always great. I'll say this, Emily, that one of the many reasons why I'm glad we're doing the 2000s is because we're going to get to talk about Philip Seymour Hoffman a lot, because he is in a lot of great movies that we're going to cover. But it is just interesting that this movie, its claim to fame, I would argue, and that is the scene between Philip Seymour Hoffman and John Slattery. It's the scene on YouTube. It's the scene that it feels like all anyone knows from this movie is, Sorkin heads that want to watch the scene where he yells at him about not getting the Helsinki gig. And it's a great scene. And Slattery goes toe to toe with Hoffman in that scene too. Like I love Slattery. He obviously is incredible on Mad Men. He should have won an Emmy for that performance. He's incredible on that show. I love Slattery's energy. It's always a very similar energy, but it always works. And I love him in this scene. But it's also a scene that you watch and you're just like, I want that movie. How do I get that movie? Why do I have to sit through the rest of this shit?
It's so much on the line of the scenes where you just cut away and burn after reading, and you're seeing J.K. Simmons and David Raish being like, what do we learn? And like the Coens have they have a take on the CIA, and B, they sort of are like, they are more tuned in on what the tone of that movie is. But it is that's what I want to see, is that with Slattery and PSH.
I think that scene it's very Sorkin-y because it ends with the property damage. I think he loves that. He loves that shit. I don't know what that's about. Callback. Yeah. That's true too.
It's just secular.
So there's something, but then the way I think that there's something Muppety about other people, like especially in The West Wing, about other characters doing that level of anger, but PSH is different. Like he's like, you really do feel that even though he's doing like exposition Olympics for some reason, like right in this moment, where he's like, I deserved this because of, here's a little summary of my career and all of my like, by the way, this is who I am. You really feel I think a lot more connected to his anger and the class rage, which I think it's like a kind of subtle element of the character, but it's there right from the start, where he's like, I'm not like these other people. Yeah. Very satisfying.
It's funny you say Muppet, Sonia, because I feel like Gust could be a Muppet. Like the way he looks, like everything about his look, it's just like he feels like a Muppet in a great way, but it's funny.
This is a classic. Recast every role with a Muppet but one, and it's PSH just surrounded by like Kermit's Charlie Wilson, Miss Piggy's Joanne.
Of course. Oh my God.
Would watch.
Who's Amy Adams though?
Janice.
That's a good question.
Oh, it's always Janice. Always Janice. Yeah.
Hi.
It is, in terms of the I hate that they're called the Charlie's Angels, because apparently that's what they were called.
Yeah, they're thanked in the credits.
It's anyway. You have like Rachel Nichols is in there, Sherry Appleby is in there, who they called Jailbait a lot. Like that's her nickname.
That's her name in the credits.
It's Jailbait.
Yeah. So far as I know, she doesn't have like a real name.
That's just.
It sucks, and she's
maybe that was her given. Maybe that was her given name.
Yeah.
No, or she changed it. Like she turned 18 and was like, I'm going to change my name to Jailbait. It is, yes, that is one of the elements of the film where I was like, A, really disgusted, and B, like, Aaron, come on.
Aaron, come on, man, you could do better. I just very quickly on the Julia Roberts of it all, because we talked closer last week, Emily, and so we talked Julia there too, but she does this, she does Ocean's 12, and then this, and then Duplicity in 2009. She's
great film. Great film. We all love Duplicity.
I think
Sonia,
of this as
Duplicity thoughts.
It's okay. I think of this as a really bad time in her career, but
it's really bad.
Yeah.
Because it's like Eat, Pray, Love is a hit, but it's kind of a movie that doesn't exist, which is pretty crazy to think about when you think about like how big that book was. Like, if you said to people who directed Eat, Pray, Love, they would never guess Ryan Murphy.
I always remember that because it was his debut film in a career that has given us many cinematic masterpieces.
So many.
It's like how people think Greta Gerwig's debut was Lady Bird, but she actually directed that one movie before it. It's kind of like that for Ryan Murphy. It's just everything that came after overshadows Eat, Pray, Love.
I mean, Eat, Pray, Love is a movie that I don't think I've seen in its entirety, if I'm being completely honest.
So you've only seen Eat and Pray? You've only seen Pray and Love.
I think I only saw Pray. No, I'm kidding. But it's just, I remember when it was announced that Julia Roberts was starring in Eat, Pray Love. I was like, well, this movie's going to make $1 billion. Obviously, it's going to be huge. But yeah, it's kind of a blip.
Do you think Ryan Murphy and Julia Roberts should get back together to make the sequel about Elizabeth Gilbert killing her lesbian lover?
Yes,
they
absolutely.
should. That would probably
By the way,
be good.
that seems more suited to Ryan Murphy's talents than Eat, Pray Love.
And to Julia's, to be honest with you, because I think because I think she's better mean. I think that like one of the things that happened in this era is that her like I'm the coolest girl in the room and everyone wants to be my friend, like that thing really started to fade. Like her qualities as kind of being like a gigantic bitch had showed up like outside of the, like in Hollywood and stuff, which is like whatever. But like, I think that on screen too, she just doesn't feel as fun when she's doing her like big smile, oh little old me. Like I think it starts to be so. Yeah, I do think that Ryan Murphy would have a lot of fun being like Julia. Just
murder,
monstrous, just be monster. Yes, exactly. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, I'm After the Hunt was no good. No good, very bad. Don't do it. I have a lot of questions as to how After the Hunt even happened in all of that, but I appreciate Julia trying stuff, and even like
everyone says she's good at that, even the people who hate it. Like,
she's not the problem. Yeah, she's not the problem.
Sure.
I actually would argue that the performances aren't really the problem. It's the script, and from what I heard, there's a script that was written that went about town that everybody was like, the script is great, and then there was the movie that got made, and that Luca did some tinkering with the script, and thus we have what we have.
Love when that happens. Mm-hmm.
I never saw Homecoming.
Oh yeah,
she's good in that.
Yeah. She's good in that. Yeah.
So like when she stretches, she can do stuff. I never saw Leave the World Behind. Was she good in that?
But her reuniting with Sam Esmail at the time to me seemed like a good idea, and then people didn't seem too hyped about it. So I think Obama liked it, or did he produce it?
He might have produced it. I think he produced it.
Good for him.
I mean, Ticket
using
to Paradise,
his post-presidency well.
Ticket to Paradise is cute, but sort of a shrug. So yeah, I feel like Julia is a little bit in the weeds right now, and kind of has been, quite frankly, for quite some time. I think
she's in a place where she only has to work when she wants to, and therefore, what she wants to do often seems strange and unusual. But like, it's she just wants to hang out with George Clooney, or she, why not?
Yeah, why not?
It must be really weird to be like so central and so revered, right? Like, the not just first on the call sheet, but like biggest star in Hollywood, and like everyone's catering to you, to kind of being a like, like, what are we gonna do with you now? And that's Hollywood, right? Like with so many performers, but it must be strange. I'm kind of not surprised that she doesn't find a role she wants to do very often.
I think she does sometimes attach and fall off of stuff as well. Like I remember I believe she was attached to the Jen Garner thing at Apple, that show, The Last Time something or other. I can't remember what it was called. She was attached to Today Will Be Different, the Maria Semple book that was going to be in HBO. It's like she kind of attaches to stuff and then fall. I mean, a lot of actors do. This is not her, but I think I don't know. I think that she's. I understand why she did After the Hunt. Like, I understand why she wanted to work with Luca. I understand why, like, all the sort of things. And she, as I said, is not bad in the movie. A little bit of tidbit. Charlie Wilson apparently went on a couple dates with Diane Sawyer before she met Mike Nichols, which is just
that's why Mike Nichols had to be talked into this. He's like, I don't want to get that guy back into that.
She said he was crazy. Take that for what it's worth. I mean, I do think that this movie's sort of reaction historically is somewhat interesting. A lot of government officials have said that this movie played fast and loose with some of the facts. I'm shocked. I would never have expected that from the people involved.
I kind of adore that era of journalists fucking the most boring politicians, because now it's like the Olivia Nutzy thing, and I'm like, what I wouldn't give for just Diane Sawyer dates a backbencher Democrat from Texas.
Yeah,
it has what sounds like a couple disappointing dates. Sure, why not?
I long for a time when it didn't seem like everything was dangling by a thread. Yeah, I agree with you.
Everything that's happening now just feels like it's the Ryan Murphy version of reality, to be honest.
It is. Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting, so George, is it Creel?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. He there's a
I don't know if you're pronouncing it right, but I do want to talk about him. That's why I said that.
I want to talk about him just very quickly. He was obviously the author of the book. He wrote that the Mujahideen's victory in Afghanistan ultimately opened a power vacuum for bin Laden. He's quoted by saying, by the end of 1993 in Afghanistan itself, there were no roads, no schools, just a destroyed country, and the United States was washing its hands of any responsibility. It was in the vacuum that the Taliban and Osama bin Laden would emerge as the dominant players. It's ironic that a man who had almost nothing to do with the victory over the Red Army, Osama bin Laden, would come to personify the power of the jihad. I think that that's, again, something that this movie is interested in, but only to a degree, and I would argue is not the sort of final thesis statement that's effective or satisfying thematic, cinematically, right? Like I don't think that it works. And it seems like it was foisted on the movie by Hanks rather than feeling like this in concert with 9/11 would really kind of hammer home the point. But yeah, this reporter, George Creel, the third.
Just call him third.
Seems quite, aware of the fact that they dropped the ball. And that's why sort of the last line of the book is what, that they fucked up the end game. But I don't know that he's like particularly interested in talking about the connections to 9/11.
It really is like, you see Dan Rather in this movie.
You do.
Like hanging out with the
Afghans,
the Afghans, and like kind of cosplaying, and like and like it is a reminder of these old school journalists had huge blind spots around all sorts of things that we can be aware of, but also were like legitimately trying and good at their jobs. And that's like what I wouldn't mind watching, is the movie about I'm Dan Rather and I've decided to get everyone interested in this thing. That's, I think, a movie that would make a little more sense, particularly in 2007 to have made. I keep thinking Dan Rather's dead, but he's still alive.
He's still alive, and he pops up on social media from time to time to be like, Trump sucks.
He tweeting. I think that Creel is an interesting guy. He was a CBS guy. Maybe that's why the Dan Rather thing is in there too. But he he's won a bunch of awards and stuff. I do feel like it does seem like a lot of the things that he became well known for, aside from one thing I'll get to in a second, are like maybe internal stuff with the CIA, where like he has a source that's like, oh, well, we've been doing this stuff with Castro after the Bay of Pigs, and nobody knows about it, but someone's got to talk about it, and he's cultivating these sources, perhaps intelligence sources. So there was a big one at Vietnam too, where like the General Westmoreland's like cooking the numbers on Vietnam. Now it's like, what a surprise, but obviously at the time a big deal. And then there's this piece in 1980 called Gay Power, Gay Politics, part of CBS Reports, which was a gigantic scandal because it is focused. I'm just reading from Wikipedia here, so sorry not to be doing my major fact checking, but focused largely on the supposed sexual practices of the gay male community, especially sadomasochism. It was used as a tool of the religious right to block or repeal anti-discrimination ordinances. The opening of this thing Okay, it's from The Anchor. I'm just going to read the opening narration,
Great.
which is over the shots of the 1979 March on Washington. I'm going to do my anchor voice, okay?
Okay, cool.
For someone of my generation, it sounds a bit preposterous. Political power for homosexuals? But these predictions are already coming true. In this report, we'll see how the gays of San Francisco are using the political process to further their own special interest, just like every other minority group before them. Gay power, gay politics, that's what this report is about. It's not a story about lifestyles or the average gay experience. What we'll see is the birth of a political movement and the troubling questions it raises for the 80s, not only for San Francisco, but for other cities throughout the country. And then it mostly was about sexual activity, cruising, so-called sadomasochism consultants. 1 out of every 10 deaths in San Francisco is attributable to gay men participating in BDSM, apparently.
1 in 10?
1 in 10. One gay-oriented BDSM establishment's clientele engaged in sexual activity, quote, so dangerous that they have a gynecological table there with a doctor and nurse on hand to sew people up. He compared what I mean, I'm telling, like, so we were talking about blind spots before. What's going on here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just think this is a really interesting, like, I think this is just to say that, like, there's these people had their own agendas, right? I think it's interesting to, like, go back and obviously, like, gay panic is he's not the only person. Yeah, he's not the only person that dabbled in that, but looking back on
this is crazy.
It's really nuts. I mean, the medical stuff feels so crazy. Somebody he compares San Francisco to the Weimar Republic and asks one of the people there, isn't it a sign of decadence when you have so many gays emerging, breaking apart all the values of a society? Dianne Feinstein's people, like, chased him out of the room because let's see, what did this was, hang on.
But it's also interesting that when you think about the fact that he would be interested in Charlie Wilson, right? Like that this womanizer, this type, let's be real, what I assume he thinks is a man's man. You know what I'm saying?
First of all, that article has huge "if I'm not gay, so why do all these homosexuals keep sucking my cock" energy. But it is the thing of, so a couple years ago, a reporter for the Free Press, Barry Weiss's one. Now, speaking of CBS News, her website was, like, basically talked to someone who worked at Missouri Children's Hospital in St. Louis, who, like, shared, like, oh my God, the kids are coming in and they're asking to transition to rocks. And you're like, this makes no sense. Like, none of this, and all of the journalists who fact checked her, like, were like, okay, this is just blatantly false. Like, of the things that she said, she maybe got, like, one thing half right and everything else. But the Free Press published it without comment because it's talking about trans kids who are an embattled minority group within the country. And so it's like journalists who want to sort of get swung by sources can, if it's playing into a built-in prejudice they have about how the world works that they may not even be aware they have, can sort of get swung. And it sounds like that happened with this, which makes me wonder how much was the CIA, like, snowing him on everything else,
Yes.
I think that gets back to some of the questions about we were talking about earlier, like, does this movie even care about Islamism? And I think, like, there are so many patronizing like sound cues and like even the establishing shots, like, gotta have the minarets, gotta have the muezzin, like, we don't see Pakistan as a what it was, a very secular place before Zia was there. We don't see the vibrance of that, the vibrant quality of that. We just see a very like kind of top down view of what this means. I found it very frustrating. I think also because sometimes it feels a little bit like the Islamism is being played up while sort of deflecting a little bit from the cynicism that the CIA had in being like, well, communism is so scary to us that we'd rather deal with these, primitive whatever they were thinking about these people, like these primitive tribal leaders, because our interests are just so much more important to us. I found it very like, do you think these people really went to refugee camps and really cared that much? Like, what, like, think about the refugees these people are creating all over the world all the time. Like, I just found so that whole perspective I struggled with. I mean, I think obviously post 9/11, like the way that this nation thinks about its Muslim citizens and Muslims as a whole is like so bonkers, and the way that these like very hackneyed narratives come out in, even like 6 years later in this Hollywood movie, you're like, man, this stuff really runs deep, and it's almost like it's shorthand, right? You don't need to do any more storytelling. You're like, oh, well, but then radical Islamic terrorism. You're like, oh, of course, yes, A to B.
Well, the reactions to Zoran Mamdani from certain elements of the population, certain people who are just steeped in Islamophobia, was like really like eye-opening for me. Like, it's so weird. Hold on.
Oh.
Hi.
She's got something.
Oh yeah.
Oh, hi, Margo.
What do you have to say about Charlie Wilson's work?
That seems right. That seems right.
Because it's she should have no perspectives whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
That's the right. That's the right answer.
It's no, but the rampant Islamophobia that was behind so many people's objections to him, and like how they would act as though it was principled in a way where I was just like, I think you're just incredibly racist.
Yeah, I think that's.
It's like it really like. I find all prejudice weird. Like I'm sure as a white lady, I have plenty of ingrained stuff, but like when it's that overt and in the open, I'm like, come on, you have better things to do with your time. And but it's still so common in our society,
There's a joke that I don't know if you guys saw that was trending off of Bill Maher the other night. That,
oh God,
he told. Yeah, no, I'm not. This is.
No.
So he basically, it was a joke about Zoran. That got no laughs in the audience. Like I've never seen a joke die that hard on television. Like I'm surprised it made the final cut. Like why didn't they just like I've never seen anything like that before. And I was just like, guys,
can you tell us the joke?
The joke was basically something, I'm paraphrasing, but it was like Zoran is the future of the party. It was basically just about how the Republicans are thrilled that he won because they can use him as a sort of straw man for all the things that they hate. Like that was ultimately the joke.
Okay.
It was a bad joke. It was a stupid joke. It wasn't funny, but it was also just like, really, guys? Like what? And for you to get crickets speaks volumes about not just what people want him to represent, and hopefully he will represent, but also just we do not need that right now. Like we're not interested in that right now.
Putting it in the frame of this movie, though, this movie is ostensibly on the side of Afghan freedom fighters pushing back against the invasion of the Soviet Union, and yet, it falls back on all these hackneyed xenophobic tropes in a way that you're just like, come on.
But and then on top of everything, but like I'm watching this film and I'm thinking about what's going on in the Ukraine right now, and I'm just like, remember when this country was against Russia taking over other countries? And on top of everything else, just thinking about what is We talk about why this is not a cinematic movie, and one of the myriad of reasons that it's not a cinematic movie is because of all the sort of backdoor dealings in politics and red tape and bureaucracy it's necessary in order for a country like this to cover its ass, to not seem as though it's putting its thumb on the scales for one country or another in a problem. And you watch this and you're just like, it is insane what needs to be done to cover your ass under these circumstances.
It yes, I wish this movie had more paperwork. But speaking of Russia, I cannot wait for the movie in 30 years that the Russian film industry puts out about three guys somewhere deep in the KGB who realize you could topple the United States by posting Star Wars memes. Like, that's going to be
it's gonna be a great movie.
Film.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great movie. Yeah. I want to say though, because I do feel like it's emblematic of the movie.
That was such a lib mom joke, but you know what?
I liked it.
I'm owning it.
I'm thinking about all the Star Wars proper nouns done in Russian accents. I'm not going to be able to do them myself. I'm just imagining, like, and then like Rian Johnson, Kathleen Kennedy are also getting cited as the reason the franchise is failing, but in our Russian accents. And go on.
The opening of this movie, the very, very opening of this film, which is like the silhouette of an Afghan soldier firing a rocket at the screen. I was just like, this is how this movie starts?
Then there's like the fire flag title.
And then the flag. I was just like, guys, this is the tone you wanted to start with? Crazy.
It looks like a car dealership ad. Like, I don't know what we're doing here.
It's terrible. And then we got Tom Hanks in a hot tub of strippers. And I'm just like, what is this movie? Here's the other thing that I love, is that I get the impression that the thing Aaron Sorkin is most interested in talking about is the TV show that this guy wants to get made about Washington and the stripper that will star in it.
Yes.
I think Aaron Sorkin's like, how do I make a movie about the making of this television show?
Well, it's clearly him like having a laugh at his own, because I'm guessing it's not from the historical record. I'm guessing it's just him being like, I made the West Wing.
Yeah.
For sure. But that's what I mean when I'm like, this fictionalized television show is brought up no less than 6 or 7 times in this movie. Like, it's not like it's... But anyway,
they should have gone to Los Angeles and talked about a sketch comedy competitor to SNL.
Yes, that's what they should have done.
So, Sonia, you were out on Sorkin at this point. Were you not a Studio 60 fan? That sounds weird. That's like a show a lot of people love.
Which is part of the reason why Sorkin was kind of checked out on this script, which was that he was in pre-production on Studio 60.
What an abysmal show.
It's a great show, Sonia.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it does have real AF quality. But I am I think that when I watched this at the time, I was like, this is the Sorkin that I kind of that I fell in love with, which is to say I love the backroom stuff. Granted, I think now I'm a little bit like, does Aaron Sorkin have to be so in love with the CIA? Like, I don't know if I needed that. I don't know if you guys remember that in The West Wing, in that one-off episode that takes place in the universe of 9/11. Isaac and Ishmael. CJ, who is the only female character that Sorkin's ever written that is good, I'd say, because Allison Janney is good. So I put Allison Janney in that on that pedestal.
Correct.
But she does this thing where she's like, the CIA is good. This is my song. I'm going to sing a song about how the CIA is good. And I was thinking about that while watching this, just being like, it's wild how I guess like what it is neoliberalism, but I guess it's wild that this guy is like, oh yeah, like socially we want all of these things that are good for the country, and we just love the CIA doing what it does. We love that the CIA is like anyway. So
I think that Sorkin likes the CIA because they're so like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like they just know stuff.
It's so easy to imagine writing a cool movie about what they're doing or a cool play.
That's what I mean.
And they're theoretically competent. And I think he loves that too. He loves competence. So he loves the idea that there's a bunch of guys who are super well trained, like in a room somewhere. Oh, like the scene with the guy playing chess with 10 people at once. That's
most classic Sorkin-y fucking shit you've
very
ever seen.
Classic Sorkin shit, right? Yeah. Like just like, so they're so smart. So they're in a room and they're being smart, and that means that it's okay. What they're doing is okay. But so that's
all what Sorkin wants, is to sound smart.
I feel like if Aaron Sorkin had a conversation with Abigail Spanberger, his brain would explode.
Just absolutely,
because he'd be like, "Oh my god, a competent CIA agent,
no.
But a woman who can like,
and a woman who's a governor."
Yeah, no, I like, I do think we did Few Good Men on our 92, and that is a much better movie than this. Even I will admit that. But it is also a movie where Aaron Sorkin's essential like boomer understanding of politics and the universe just really has tanked it over the years, because it's like, it is more skeptical of the military than this is of the CIA, but it's very much like it's just a few bad apples school of thought, in a way that like is unwilling to engage with these actual problems. I was thinking about this movie's treatment of Israel, and how it seems totally like Israel's like a plot point. It's not like a movie trying to like make a larger point about Israel, but it is like, this is a movie about people who just sort of like that Israel exists because it helps them like win the Cold War, and that's as much as they've thought about it, and that's as much as the movie thinks about it. But it's again like this like very thin thing that the movie is. The worldview of the movie doesn't have to account for all the complicated elements within it, but I need to know that the people making it have thought about them, and like it's just clear that they're like, well, of course, and we all love Israel. Moving on, you know.
It's just it's an incredibly complicated, not to say the most obvious thing in the world, but an incredibly complicated region of the planet, and that they are not even remotely interested in exploring why these complexities exist. I do. Yes, please, Sonia.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just going to say that one of the things about Sorkin is that he's just terrified of ideology too. Like he's always really like, he's very interested in sort of exploring it, because in a sort of surface way, I'd say, because he is terrified by what ideology can convince people to do. But sometimes that means that he sort of uses ideology as this like all powerful kind of
cudgel.
Yeah, when like there could be other things motivating people who also happen to, you know, heed the call to prayer. Like you can do that and also have material needs, but I think sometimes that's very smart of Sorkin. You know, I think his focus on white supremacy, especially, you know, in the West Wing days, I look back and I'm like, prescient. Like honestly, he was really on top of that being something really scary and growing, you know, all the way back in the late 90s. And then at the same time, I think when it's used in this more geopolitical context, I mean, the West Wing got a lot of shit for the way that it treated, you know, the way that it talked about its Middle Eastern fictionalized, really, really tense stuff happening, like just like sort of just wrong on some level, you know, kind of racist without even realizing it, as well. And I think it does.
Not that I would want to be the political television show following 9/11 and trying to in any way parse what was going on in the world, but yes,
absolutely. But I think also at the same time, some of it, you can see that there's some of this like, oh well, I love Western civilization because it's quote unquote rational and it's not driven by ideology. It's like, okay, right, totally, man. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
But don't worry, guys, his Social Network sequel is going to be really subtle and it's going to be great.
It's going to be so.
I thought about the Social Network a lot while watching this. I did, because it's another Forest for the Trees movie, I think. I mean, that's I'm not a huge fan of the Social Network, so that's part of it. But I think Sorkin's script and Fincher's lens and then the soundtrack are all kind of on a different level, where like
weirdly kind of work.
Yeah, it does. I do think it integrates much better than this movie does, where there's such a great deep sinister feeling to everything that's happening that Sorkin's script seems to have no concern.
No interest. None.
And I felt a little bit like this here. I'm like, where's the Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor soundtrack to like deeply resonate here? Yeah.
No, I Sorkin. This is another thing, is that at this point in time, before Social Network, people are like, Sorkin cannot write screenplays. He obviously had done good screenplays before, but it is like American President, especially. But this movie, with people were like, well, his skills don't translate as well to the screen as thing. Yeah, which is. And he like needs a strong directorial hand.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yes.
That's a reason that Fincher works. It's a reason that I cannot remember, Bennett Miller works. And when he's directing his own stuff, it's so often,
this movie truly, this script specifically, not to belabor the Sorkin point, but I do think like I don't think he cracked it. Like I don't think he really figured out what the driving force of Charlie was.
I think he may have cracked it in a different direction than the other people wanted to make. I think there is a version of me that is like, did he write something that was darker and more satirical? Is that in his wheelhouse? I think it is entirely possible people read that script and were like, this just doesn't work, because I'm not sure Sorkin can do that. But I can see the appeal to him of doing it with that take. And when they were like, let's actually just do the Aaron Sorkin thing, he kind of lost interest, you know?
Well, there's also, we're led to believe.
Cannot believe I'm arguing Aaron Sorkin innocent.
Yeah, you're before him. So we have this moment. He goes to see the Pakistani president or whatever dictator. Yeah. And this guy forces him to go to the Afghan refugee camps, and we get this quite powerful and well executed shot of him looking at this sort of sea of refugee tents, and it's his, forgive me, but it's his, Oscar Schindler seeing the girl in the pink coat, right? It's the moment when the veil is lifted and he sees something that he didn't know existed, and we're led to believe that this is, and I believe that everyone involved thought this was the moment where now Charlie gets it, and Charlie's going to fight for these people because they deserve to be fought for and what have you, and to give them a chance to fight for their own country and what have you. The problem ultimately is sort of that gets muddled in all the other machinations, and the fact that this movie gets very enamored with the CIA and with, the sort of black ops and the what have you. And Charlie as a character doesn't really feel like that arc is ever fully sort of it doesn't pay off, right? Like, I think the moment is when these Afghans are given these rocket launchers essentially, and they're able to shoot down the helicopters. A drinking game would be every time anyone says they need to shoot down the helicopters, because this movie's just about shooting down helicopters.
It's that is ultimately, I think it's, and I alluded to this earlier, its biggest failure is that it's just a movie about figuring out a way to give people more money. And like the ultimate mechanism of that is kind of compelling, but not really. It's just like, I'm going to like hide some stuff in a budget appropriations memo or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, okay, sure. I don't want to say that like having your heart swayed by the perils of innocent children is like cheap.
The worst.
But in a movie, in a movie about a congressman, I kind of want him to be a little bit more just have a reason other than I saw some kids who were in peril, and I think that like, it's obvious that seeing children in peril has historically always been like the best way to get people to rally against an awful cause. But it is like
they do it twice. They do it with Ned Beatty again.
It doesn't feel like. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's, I don't want to say unearned, but it really has kind of a feeling of, okay, sure.
Well, I think what's weird about this movie, and it kind of hit me as I was watching it yesterday, was like, it's really kind of an episode of The West Wing, right? Like, it's really just an episode of television and not really a movie, if you understand what I'm saying. And this is not me saying that a movie is better than TV. Clearly, that's not what I mean. But it's just not, it's a giant canvas that Aaron Sorkin has shrunk down to a television episode.
Josh and Donna go to Afghanistan.
Kinda, right? Josh sees terrible Afghan refugee situation and decides he's going to fight for them to be able to,
And then Donna stares at him adoringly as he tells the story about his dog dying.
Eating glass.
I was like, hearing that story, I was like, this is kind of like unusually dark for an Aaron Sorkin anecdote.
Yes.
And it turns out it's just from Charlie Wilson's real life.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Great.
Which, well, by the way, like that story, theoretically, the notion of a young man seeing this terrible thing happen to his dog and deciding that he wants to take down the politician that did it to his dog, like that's America kind of in a nutshell, right? Like it is kind of that, like it takes something like that to light a fuse under people to get them invested. But yeah, and then just Amy Adams with her big blue eyes just looking at him as though like everything he says is just gospel is insane. Gus says, yes,
it's interesting to me that the faith in democracy and that like small level kind of small d democracy, and then also this like refugee camp kind of gauzy like I want to save the world idealism is in the same movie as Charlie Wilson bringing his belly dancer friend to Pakistan. I think it's Pakistan. It's really one of those, it's another one of the moments in this movie where I'm like, this is just not the whole story. There is no way. What do you mean his friend always wanted to be like, even if some of that, like just the way that she's behaving, I'm like, this really doesn't feel like she's just a belly dancer and that this is just like, you know what I mean? So I think that there is, it goes back to Sorkin being so interested in the mechanics of, you know, what's happening in the halls of Congress. And then there's some stuff over there.
Yeah, don't worry about that stuff. It's Gus has a great line where he says the mules are getting better healthcare than the Afghans when he's being sort of told about the various things that are required in order to be able to move these missiles. And lines like that kind of pierce the bubble of this movie a little bit from time to time. There's just not enough of them. There's not enough moments where you're just like, I understand what you're getting at.
I've sort of always understood Aaron Sorkin's ideology as being sort of the basic liberal ideals of everyone should have, housing, healthcare, etc. Yeah. And then the next level up above that is, but people like me should be in charge and you should have to listen to everything we say. And like, that's untenable. Those two things are in conflict. So, but like, you can't, I think that's why PSH works so well here, because he is the guy who can puncture, who takes the Sorkin dialogue that points to his like, and it's like punctures the impossibility of that project in such a, if you care about people and you want to give them housing and healthcare, then you also have to care about their like right to autonomy in a way that Sorkin finds a little frightening. My favorite scene in this movie is when Charlie Wilson is simultaneously dealing with his first meeting with Gust and then, also like dealing with this scandal that's breaking.
Yes.
And neither of them feels entirely real, but also it's so fun to like have the farcical elements of it. But yeah.
I agree. That is probably my second favorite scene in the movie. But what's
your favorite scene is the belly dancer, right? In Pakistan, you're like, oh, of course,
obviously.
Yeah, this is just his pal.
Yeah. It's when he puts his finger in her belly button. Obviously, that's my favorite scene.
Of course. You were like, this is the sexiest thing I've ever seen.
This is the sexiest thing I've ever seen. Not, oh my God, I want to jump out my window. What's interesting about the scene you're talking about, Emily, the sort of bouncing back and forth between the two conversations is, I would argue it's not well directed. It's so it doesn't have the energy that you want it to have. Like it should be sped up. It should feel more farcical, but it's being directed actually at a pretty laconic tone.
There's a lot of scenes like this in Being the Ricardos.
There is, yes.
When like Aaron Sorkin has the like stage direction chops to like make that, and obviously Mike Nichols has that too, but like Aaron Sorkin plays all of them as very high energy, and that movie is demented, so it doesn't work. But like it is. Yeah, and in Social Network he does that a lot too. And Fincher directs it like we're trapped in a psychological horror movie, and like that also
sign me up. Great, yeah.
It's kind of just like I'm doing the script as written, and
Or take someone like Danny Boyle with Steve Jobs, who also takes a different tact, which is a much more kind of visual tact, but still like Nichols directs this scene in such a strange way that it does make you wonder, like, is he there with the script? Like, does he care. We talked earlier about how the three central performances feel like they're in three different movies, which leads me to believe a little bit that there's a lot of like self-direction going on from the actor, as opposed to thinking about the whole mosaic.
And I think Sonia talking about how the different layers of social network seem to be working at odds but end up in harmony. And that happens a lot in Fincher, where it feels like Gone Girl, one of my favorite movies. Everyone, all of them, Gillian Flynn and David Fincher and Rosamund Pike and Ben Affleck think they're in 4 different movies, but all of those movies converge in the point that is Gone Girl. And like, there are directors who can do that, but like they are really exacting, precise people, and Nichols is really not that. The other person who can kind of get away with it sometimes is Clint Eastwood, where it's clear that he just wants to go play golf, and you're like,
he's just like,
I want you to go.
We
play
got
golf
it.
Too,
we got that take. We got it in one. We don't need to do this again. I do also think like the Gust bugging the Scotch bottle is like a little too cute for its own good as well. Where you're just like, what? Why? Like to what end? He's
meant to be Ozymandias in Watchmen. Just be like, I did it 35 minutes ago.
It's just very, very strange. I do feel like when this movie finally gets to a place where the Afghans are shooting down the helicopters with the missiles that you feel like you've been waiting for no joke, like an hour and a half, and it finally happens, and you're like, I mean, thank God, I guess, but also like, I'm cheering on something. Like, I know the Russians are the bad guys in this movie, but to your sort of point, many minutes ago, Sonia, I don't feel like this movie's reckoning with the two sides of this situation. Not that I'm in any way suggesting that Russia should be able to overtake Afghanistan, but it is just sort of like there's a nuance in these wars that this movie's just not interested in really grappling with, and instead it's just like, look, they got the big gun. It's like, guys, there's more to it than this.
This is also the most boring we shot down a helicopter footage ever.
Yes.
There's nothing visceral about it.
Not an action director.
Yeah, not to Nichols' strength. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I mean, it is interesting that that it is so boring. The climax of the sort of actiony scenes, the explosions, they don't really impact. And then it does sort of seem like the script is kind of building to this final confrontation in the Black Box Appropriations Committee. Sorry, the what is it, like the secret defense committee? Yeah. Where there's like the 3 guys, and Tom Hanks is like, well, we need to give them more secret money so that they can like do this stuff, and they're like, oh, we don't care about this anymore. And that is like the closest that everything comes to being critical of what has happened so far. And it is critical, like full stop. The guy even gets the country wrong, right? He says Pakistan instead of Afghanistan. And Charlie Wilson's feelings are hurt, naturally. And it's almost like that's the climax, so to speak. Like those are the fireworks and not the literal explosions.
It's you also have this really cringy moment that is supposed to be cringy, but still, where he's in the appropriations meeting and all these fucking old white guys are laughing about how it started at 5 million and now it's at basically $1 billion. And it's just like, ha 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 ha, all this money that we're spending, like, isn't this funny? And I'm just like, I hate this. Everything
it makes you feel kind of sick.
It really does make you sick. I want to talk about the end of this movie, because it's strange.
Before you say this,
yeah,
my brain is like, what the fuck happens at the end of this movie? Like, it is whirling in place, and I just remembered, but it legit took me like 30 seconds. Go ahead.
I'm going to read just these 2 very quick paragraphs from the book that speak to the conflict that happened about the ending that they shot. To be clear, they shot an ending where we have the scene on the balcony outside the office, and basically Philip Seymour Hoffman says to Tom Hanks, like, if you guys don't put money into Afghanistan to build this country up, there's a power vacuum that's going to be filled by the quote unquote crazies. And, then you have this ridiculous moment where you see the reaction shot on Tom Hanks and you hear planes, which is their subtle way of insinuating that 9/11 is coming around the corner. Now, they shot a version where you can see the Pentagon from Charlie Wilson's office, from his balcony. And what they shot was a version of him seeing the Pentagon on fire on September 11th after the plane crashed at the Pentagon. And they shot that. And to say, so basically what's in the book is Sorkin saw everything that happened in Charlie Wilson as a precursor to 9/11, said Tom Hanks. We did shoot that scene because I thought there was about a 50% chance it'd work, but it wasn't the point of the book or the movie or the performance I was giving. I can understand a guy as good as Sorkin saying, I love that there, but when I saw it put together, I didn't think we connected the dots. I said, we took a shot, but this ain't it. Charlie Wilson himself didn't want the scene in the movie because he was afraid that people were going to blame the people of Afghanistan for 9/11, said Aaron Sorkin. And Tom didn't like playing the quote unquote guy that caused 9/11. I thought those were silly reasons, but what happened was by the time we got into the editing room, Mike did not like the job he had done during production when he had been so sick, and he felt that he had lost the creative authority to tell the studio producer or star no. We saw the first cut of the movie called the quote unquote suicide cut because it can't really take it, because it can really take it out of you. And Mike was not able to recover from the suicide cut. So Gary Getzman and the head of Hanks' company, Playtone, and Tom won that fight. I want to emphasize that they were not taking advantage of a sick Mike Nichols. They simply had a creative vision as strong as the one that Mike had and I had, and there's one. I don't know, man. It's a weird confluence of egos and agendas that led to a weaker film.
On the one hand, that sounds better than the ending we have. But I can also hear how it would not have cut together well. I can hear. On the other, it is as though Aaron Sorkin saw the last shot of Munich and the beautiful evocation of 9/11 without saying 9/11 and was like, I can make a movie so obvious.
Hand me my beer. 100%. I mean, I don't disagree. And sight unseen, what can we say, right? Like, I haven't seen how it cut together. It's possible it didn't cut well together.
It'll be for the Criterion, you know.
What's interesting though is, obviously, Mark Harris had been writing this book for quite some time. Tom Hanks has sort of tried to round the edges off of this movie in various interviews in the subsequent years where he's talked about, I would have done the blow on camera. I don't know why people are saying that I didn't want to do blow on camera. And you're like, I don't think you'd want to do cocaine on camera, Tom, but that's fine. I mean, and I no judgment. But I do think that like this ending feels like, even if it was slightly off, Hanks was going to pull the plug, right? Like it could have been 95% there, and I still think Hanks was going to get gun shy about it. Yeah. That's my guess. But I could be wrong. I don't know. I mean, it is. I can understand Charlie Wilson. His perspective is actually a somewhat fair one, which is like, let's not paint all Afghans with a very, very broad brush and make it seem as though they're all the reason. That's a completely fair thing. I don't know that people would have drawn that conclusion if they hadn't already, quite frankly, but Hanks feels like he doesn't want that. And then instead what we get is a love letter to the CIA. The final moments of this movie are just like, rah, rah, CIA, they do great work. Like, it's very weird.
Yeah. Good,
like that's
that.
just
and if only we'd listen to them more.
right And I also am a little bit shocked that at the very least we didn't get some sort of a text explaining like what happened and where the money went and how we went wrong. Instead we're just left with that like pretty glib quote about how we just didn't stick the landing.
There's a through line on this guy that is like, I got really into this because I was concerned about the kids. And I was still concerned about the kids at the end, and nobody cared because they were too into the geopolitics. I think that probably like sands a lot of rough edges off the real person, but that's like a movie arc you can see working. And the movie is just kind of like only pays lip service to it in a way that is, I don't know. It's,
I don't think Julia has an arc either. I think the closest person to an arc is Philip Seymour Hoffman, but he's still kind of like doesn't change as a person.
He's brute forcing an arc onto the movie.
So let's rate this film. At the end of our episodes, Sonia, we rate our films from 0 to 99 from when we first saw it, and now we rate it now as to whether or not our opinions have possibly changed in the years that have passed. I mean, when I saw this in 07, I was probably at like a 60. I don't really think I've changed much, quite frankly. It might have even gone down a little bit. Like I think that this movie is competently made, as you said, Emily, like in terms of like physical production. I think that like it's there. It has the beats of a movie. It feels like it could be a movie. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily think that the performances are bad either, quite frankly. Like I don't think that Hanks and Roberts are bad. I think they're doing a thing. I just think they don't all, as we said, kind of speak to each other. Anyway, I'm at like a 57. That's where I'm at now. What about you, Emily?
You saying that made me think of my favorite woodworking review, Woodworking by Emily St. James.
Oh,
it's
yeah?
a great holiday gift, which is on
where books are sold.
Amazon.com from Joan Dobby, who wrote 5 stars. All is well. The book arrived in fine condition. I am reading it now. That's, yeah.
By the way, 5 stars.
5 stars, great service. Thanks, Amazon, for shipping this to me. The thing that you do.
I also love the I am reading it now. Yeah, could not be more. Are you liking it?
I hope so.
I'm sure she is.
I hope
sure
Joan had a great time.
Yeah.
I watched this movie on, I want to say Stars or HBO or something.
Sure.
Long after it had been in theaters. What it was I was up late, flipping through the channels, happened upon. This is going to sound so pervy, but it's not, I promise. Happened upon the scene that is literally just, we're going to stare at Amy Adams' butt for a while, and then we're going to see her ponytail swishing back and forth. Had such intense gender dysphoria that I was like, I have to watch the rest of this movie. So, because I was just like, I was coincidentally, as I was watching this movie, I was talking with another trans friend about what if we took the substance and a 20-something woman popped out of our back, who would it be? And, you know, we were going back and forth, and I was finally like, oh, mine is 2002 Amy Adams. That's like just who, that's the woman who lives in my spine and is trying to emerge from me. And this movie reminded me of how much like that element of it, I don't want to say spoke to me, but was the reason I watched it. And so I guess I'm rating this on how cute I think her ponytail is and how much I wish I could pull that off. And on that level, it was a 75. The movie itself, I probably was more like a 48. And I've gone down a bit. I'd say I'm like a 41. I don't mind watching this movie. I don't think it's good, but I'm also like, it just, Sean Fennessy, our guest from last week, had a sort of post on Letterboxd that was like, Mike Nichols is just I think he talked about this a little. Mike Nichols is just uncomfortable with like this kind of subject matter in a way where you can tell he can't quite lock into it. And you feel that throughout this movie. Not to say Aaron Sorkin innocent, because I don't think this is a good script, but I think he is far from the worst of its problems. So yeah, 41 sounds about right. I think that's higher than both Closer and What Planet Are You From? So
I think it is. Yes.
I can't wait to listen to this Closer episode.
It's actually it's a great episode. We had a great time.
I believe it.
Sonia, what about you? Where were you back in 07 and where are you now?
So I think being both kind of much more neoliberal at the time in 2007, and also having missed the Sorkin of political backrooms. I was you know, like closer to Emily, maybe 70. I was thinking about my numbers last night. I was like, probably like a 70, 75. And then this time I had to stop watching the movie at least once out of rage. And then I was like, I don't know, like a 22, like, I don't know, maybe a I don't know, I could do like a 30 for like competent, you know, like it exists, you know, but the book arrived in fine condition. But I think there's so much subtext to it that is so deeply appalling to me that I just could not stomach it. So yeah, it's really descended in
it's so funny because I feel like the last 2 episodes, Emily, with Closer last week and now with this, our guests had like slightly positive perspectives on the film and then rewatched the film before the episode and were like, No. I was completely wrong in my assessment of like Sean was like, I watched Closer back in the day and I liked it fine and it worked for me. And now I watch it. I'm just like, this is a nightmare movie. Like, how is this even possible? And I think that this is a similar thing where it's like, if I, watch this in '07, I was like, I'm not enjoying this, but it's fine. Like, it's whatever. And now you watch it through the dumpster fire of 2025 and you're just like, no.
That's the thing about watching every movie from the 2000s is it's either a promise of a bygone era we cannot get back to, or it's like, oh, you people are destroying the world and you're not even. And like it's impossible to predict which will be which. Would I have ever imagined that Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest would make me long for a bygone era? No. But it did. I miss when we film movies on this open sea, I guess.
On boats. Yeah, it was great. Sonia, next week we are starting our Christmas miniseries.
Oh, of course.
With Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Do you have any thoughts on Kiss Kiss Bang Bang? Have you ever seen it?
I haven't. No.
Oh yeah, I think you'd really like it. It's very
okay. Oh, okay,
it's
great.
a super fun movie. It's a Shane Black, written and directed, Robert Downey Jr., Val Kilmer. I'm very excited to rewatch it more.
We never came up with a better name for this year's Christmas miniseries, but we batted a bunch of stuff around and ultimately landed on The Boys Are Sad and It's Christmas.
The Boys Are Sad and It's Christmas.
We didn't want to do super holly jolly and not, so it's movies where Christmas is happening, but also the boys are sad.
The boys are sad and Christmas is around them. It's
boys for
Kiss
the holidays.
Bang Bang, Catch Me If You Can, and In Bruges. Those
are the
boys are sad.
Oh, the boys are sad. Got it.
Boys are very sad.
The boys are very sad. Got
it. Sonia, is there anything that you want to plug? Is there anything you want to point people towards? Perhaps?
That's such a nice question. I have been posting on Blue Sky. I've been skeeting, as the kids say. It's been fun to be 39 years old. Which is it's legally mandated. That's what you have to be in order to be on Blue Sky. So it's been fun to do that. I've been enjoying like being on social media in a way that has no stakes now that I am like not tying my career to it.
Sure.
So I would say that's the only thing to like quote unquote
follow Sonia on Blue Sky.
Yeah, please.
She's got thoughts.
Yeah. I've got thoughts. Occasionally I also a fun thing about being a pop culture person and then you have a kid is that you introduce your kid to your pop culture. So my almost 5-year-old watched The Incredibles for the first time a couple of days ago, and he loved it so much that he took the empty DVD case with him upstairs to bed.
He took it to bed with him?
Yeah, I think he left it outside the room eventually, but he was like, I gotta look.
I need this with me.
Please, if you feel comfortable with it, record his thoughts on this, perhaps for our future.
We have a future Incredibles episode coming up. We'd love to hear his thoughts.
Oh, I'm sure he would love to share them. So yes, that sounds great.
That sounds wonderful. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, you obviously worked in television critique and what have you. Do you have a favorite show of 2025? Do you have a show that really spoke to you?
I mean, I loved Andor so much. Sure. It's like hard to express like the emotional investment I had in Andor. But I aside from that, which obviously lots of my Star Wars feelings predating 2025 as well. I have really enjoyed Pluribus. So far, yeah. I liked Adults. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I liked Adults too. Yeah,
that's sort of like everyone's the new girl show. And I did watch the second cursed season of The English Teacher. I just wanted to see. I was like, "What? How do you make a second cursed season of a show?" So I just had to follow through. It's a shame, a lot of talent in that show, but
I was gonna say, prior to the allegations, and I really enjoyed season 1 in a vacuum, not knowing the terrible things that had transpired. I have not watched season 2. I don't foresee myself doing that. But yeah, interesting. There you go.
I obviously. The only shows I've watched are Andor and The Pit, both of which I loved.
Oh, love The Pit. Yeah.
I want both of them to be my husbands. So. Andor and Dr. Robbie, come marry me.
Dr. Robbie and Andor?
Yeah.
That would be such a good throuple, though.
That'd be great. the best throuple. And I got to be honest, we're not going to do better than that in terms of ending this episode. Thank you so much, Sonia, for joining us. And I hope that you'll come back in the future and talk with us about
I would love
stuff.
that.
It was wonderful hearing your voice again, since now you're in Canada, where I never go.
It was really nice to talk to you both.
It was so nice to meet you in person. Thank you so much.
Back.
Bye.